Thanks for checking out our election coverage. I'm Reagan Hill with CPHS News. The Wolfcast and Wolfpack online newspaper have partnered together to provide you with an in-depth coverage on this year's district elections. With 5 places on the school board open, our reporters had the chance to interview all but one candidate running to earn a spot in the board. We asked each candidate the same questions with a few follow-ups. The video you're about to watch is their full unedited version. Please keep in mind that we do not fact-check any of their claims. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to vote.
So there's a number of reasons why I'm running. Some of the main reasons are, one, I'm really concerned about the direction that our schools have taken in the last few years. The quality of our education has really diminished. And if you look at the grade scores, the comparison between schools, Leandra ISD has gone way down on the list in Texas. So where we used to be at the top of the list in our grade scores, and our students had, excellent education, and now there's a large focus in our school district on teaching emotional learning instead of teaching education, instead of academics. And I'm very concerned about that. And I want the sexualization of children to stop. They shouldn't be teaching little elementary school kids anything about sex, whether it's homosexual or otherwise. They shouldn't be teaching elementary school kids about sex. And I want that to stop. And in high school, in middle school, high school, in the book clubs, I think that there's a lot of bullying that happens. If someone doesn't agree with a particular point of view, if someone is a conservative like myself, or a Christian, and doesn't agree with the things that are being pushed, they're bullied and taunted in class. And I think that's wrong. That shouldn't happen. And I'm also running because of the taxes, property taxes, and every year our school board raises our property taxes and unnecessarily. And Leandra ISD, we have enough new construction happening. It's happening all over the district. That brings in new revenue, so much new revenue that we don't need to raise property taxes on our residents. And so I'm voting no on Prop B. You see all the propaganda that's being produced that says vote yes on Prop B. Well, I'm voting no on Prop B. No to that 35% increase in our taxes. So there's lots of other reasons, but that's a short summary. Well, a lot of things. So I go to all the school board meetings. I have been for the past year, and I often watch, when in the school board meetings when different things are being discussed. And I think, why aren't they asking questions? Why aren't they, a presenter gives a presentation, and the most obvious things come into my mind. Well, what about this? What about that? And nobody asks questions. Like, for example, they say they did a random survey of voters, and I go, a random survey of voters? How did you talk to those voters? And we talked to them by phone. Okay, well, the voters list doesn't contain telephone numbers, so it's a random list of phone numbers that you obtained where, And so there's just obvious questions that our current trustees do not ask. And I'm an electronic engineer, and I dig into things, and I analyze things, and I ask questions. And that's one aspect that I'm going to add to our board that's different from the board members we have. Also, I bring a completely different perspective, okay? Our current board members promote the pornography and the obscenity that are in many books in our classrooms and our libraries, and I think that's completely wrong. If you have to be 18, if the movie is rated R, which means if you're 17 and under, you can't even view it without your parents present, why would you put the same material into the hands of teenagers or middle schoolers in a school? It's just wrong. And so those are some of the reasons that I'm qualified, because I'm going to make changes that are going to help folks. I've been a pastor in several different churches, three different churches. I helped start up and Spanish-speaking churches. I speak Spanish. Hablo español para los que entienden ese idioma. And so I want to represent the Hispanic population as well as the Anglo, the Black, one of the things that I want to stop in our schools is this CRT, critical race theory, where they're teaching kids that you're privileged if you have white skin and you're oppressed if you have black or brown skin. That's just nonsense. The color of your skin doesn't determine whether you're going to be successful or whether you're not going to be successful in life. Don't let anybody tell you that. The color of your skin will not hold you back, and the color of your skin will not make you go forward. It's what you decide inside of yourself that's going to give you success or failure in life. Right, so I'm going to vote no on both A and B. First of all, I'll tell you a little bit about A. There's a lot of disinformation that's being put out by school leaders, by staff in our school, and hopefully teenagers, by this time you've recognized that not every adult says things that are true every time they speak, and so you don't believe everything that you hear. Well, the staff of LISD is putting out this propaganda saying, trying to convince everybody to vote yes on A and B. Well, when they do that, they say that we're going to have to pay recapture to the state of Texas no matter whether A passes or not, no matter whether B passes or not. They're saying we're going to have to pay recapture. But not once, not one time has anybody on the staff of LISD ever said how much recapture we're supposed to pay. Why? Because they don't know. They're telling you we have to pay recapture, but they have no idea how much recapture. Maybe $1, maybe $2, maybe 100,000, maybe 100 million. They have no idea. So they're just talking. They're blowing smoke out. They're blowing smoke. Okay, and so they haven't established trust with the community because of all of this disinformation campaign, and as a result, I just don't trust them. They haven't provided any evidence that we're going to have to pay recapture if no matter what. And in fact, I did some research, and I contacted the Texas Education Agency, the TEA, and in fact, the TEA has notified our school district that we owe $0 in recapture. We owe $0 in recapture. I don't know if you guys know what recapture is, but recapture is where the level of revenue per student exceeds a maximum legal level, and when that happens, then a school district has to pay money to the state of Texas, and they call that recapture or Robin Hood, or purchasing attendance credits is another way of putting it. But what it means is we're paying property taxes to the state of Texas. And I think that's just wrong. So that's Prop A. Prop B is a 35% increase in taxes on the M&O side. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the way that funds are handled in the school district, but there's an M&O and an INS bucket, right? It's kind of like a savings account and a checking account, or a first mortgage and a second mortgage on a house. There are two accounts that are separate from each other, and the funds are not to be intermingled. And in the INS, that's interest and sinking. That pays off bonds, in other words, debt. And then the M&O account, that's maintenance and operations. That pays all the salaries and the upkeep of the buildings and all that sort of thing. Well, they want to raise the M&O tax by 35%. And they're claiming, this is the ludicrous claim that they're putting out, that is to give a 5% pay raise to our teachers. So they're going to raise our taxes by 35% to give a 5% raise to the teachers? I don't think so. I'm good at math, but you don't have to be good at math to know that you don't need a 35% increase in taxes to give a 5% pay raise to teachers. And they're coming out with this, the staff of LISD has come out with this ludicrous claim, absolutely ludicrous, that 458 teachers are going to lose their jobs if Prop B doesn't pass. Well, to all the teachers out there, that you have a contract for the entire school year, and they're not going to break that contract. They cannot legally break your contract. It's an absolute lie that's being told. And if I'm elected to school board, you're not going to lose your job next year either. I guarantee you that. So first of all, let's take a look at the question that's being asked. So the question being asked is, if next year we need to cut $32 million from the budget. Well, first of all, have you seen any evidence that we would have to cut $32 million from the budget next year? Have you seen any numbers that say that we'd have to cut $32 million from the budget yet next year? No, we haven't seen any evidence of that. That's a claim, another one of these crazy claims that are being made that we're going to have to cut $32 million from the budget next year. Well, maybe we'll have to make budget cuts, maybe we won't. But let me say this. Last year, we didn't have this 35% increase, and we paid all our teacher salaries, and we paid everything that we had to pay for our schools, right? So suddenly this year, with very minimal increase in student population, they're saying we need a 35% increase to pay the same things that we paid last year. I don't think so. But then there's a 5% increase for teachers. That's good. Teachers deserve that. But it doesn't take a 35% increase in taxes to pay a 5% increase in teachers. So this claim that we're going to have to do a $32 million reduction in expenses for next year, that claim I challenge. I challenge the validity of that claim. So first of all, absolutely no teaching position should be lost. The teachers that we have are the source of our income, right? The way that we source of our revenue, excuse me, not income, source of our revenue. The way that we obtain revenue from the state of Texas is by student hour. We get paid by student hour. So every hour that a student is in class, the state of Texas pays our school district for that student being in that class for that hour, right? Well, if you suddenly get rid of 100 teachers or 400 teachers, guess what that does to your student hours? They take a dive, a major dive, right? And so the idea that we're going to get rid of our revenue generators is just, anybody that would believe that is just not thinking well, okay, through the issue. So we're not going to remove any teaching positions. Now, if we do have to remove some positions, I'll tell you one. There's a number of things that are completely unnecessary in our school district. First of all, we don't need to have psychologists and psychiatrists in our schools. I don't know if you guys know the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist. A psychiatrist dispenses medicines, mind-altering drugs, okay? That should not happen in a public school setting. If a person needs a psychiatrist, that should be handled by their family. That shouldn't be handled by public schools by any stretch of the imagination. And we don't need psychologists all over all our schools trying to teach people, maybe you're a boy trapped in a girl's body, maybe you're a girl trapped in a boy's body. That's just craziness, and we don't need to be teaching children that, or young adults that. We don't need to be teaching those kinds of things in our schools. So psychologists and psychiatrists need to be eliminated from our staff. I believe maybe if we retain one or two psychologists in our entire district, but we don't need these folks all over all our schools trying to convince children or young people of things that are simply not in their own heads until they get planted into their heads. Another thing, we have a department that they call Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Well, diversity, equity, and inclusion does not include large groups of people. Diversity, equity, and inclusion does not include conservative voices, because if conservative voices try to speak up during class, they're shut down very quickly by most teachers, right? So diversity, equity, inclusion, it doesn't include people who think that the Bible is the Word of God, for example. I believe that the world was created by God, that there was the first man, the first woman, they were called Adam and Eve, and they were in the Garden of Eden, and they were created by God and told to multiply, and that's where humanity came from. I don't believe that the Earth is millions of years old. That's just nonsense. And when folks say, but that's science, the science. Well, look at the basis of the science, What's the basis? And when they try to say that the Earth is old, they take a rock and they measure carbon-14 in the rock or do some kind of dating, and the assumption is that when that rock was first formed, it was completely and totally radioactive. And after a half-life, it lost half of its radioactivity, and after another half-life, and so it's been around for 100 million years, whatever their latest numbers are, because now it's got this much radiation left in it. Well, God, when He created Adam and Eve, He created a man, He created a woman, fully grown, able to multiply and reproduce, right? And so they looked like they were already 20 years old, maybe, but they were, that's the way God created them. And when He created the earth, He created it the same way. It didn't, start out as a fully radioactive mess, And so, but people like me who believe these things are ostracized usually by the DEI folks, right? Because when they talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, they're not talking about us. They don't want, in fact, if this even gets allowed to be aired the fact that I'm talking about Adam and Eve in the Bible, if they even allow that to be aired in your school, I'll be amazed. Because voices like mine are ostracized and cut out of by the DEI folks. So that whole entire department needs to be eliminated from our schools. And people need to stop telling young people or kids that they're to judge each other based on the color of their skin. Who cares about the color of your skin? It makes no difference in life whether you're brown or black or white or some other color. I don't know, whatever. It makes no difference. You are a child of God. You were created by God Almighty, and you have value because He says you have value, not because some white person or black person or brown person says you have value. You have value not because of the color of your skin, but because of the fact that you were created, and we hold these truths to be self-evident, is what it says in our preamble to our Declaration of Independence. Self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator. Endowed by who? By their Creator, with certain unalienable rights. That's the foundation of our country. And that department needs to be eliminated. There are other things we need to look at. There's a lot of waste in elementary schools. I believe that we should not have laptop computers in elementary schools. I believe that elementary school students should learn how to read and write. And the more that they read and write from books and with pencils, that's how you learn to read and write. You don't learn to read and write on a computer, right? They shouldn't have computers in elementary schools, and they shouldn't be taking all these invasive surveys where they're asking these little kids, how do you feel today? Do you feel like a woman or a man, a boy or a girl? Are you trapped in somebody else's body? What's your home life like? What do your parents think about this? And all this crazy stuff that's being filed away in some server somewhere that's owned by a third-party company. Basically, your personal data is being provided to a third-party company, and your school district is paying for it. That's wrong. That's wrong on so many levels. So there's a lot of waste to be cut out of the budget, but none of that includes teachers. We are not going to cut any teachers out of the budget. Well, that's an interesting question. What do I feel about Dr. Gearing's job as a superintendent? So I don't know if everyone is aware that Dr. Gearing came from Dripping Springs ISD and was basically forced out of that district for two things: for sexualizing children and for sinking the district into debt. And he came here to Leander ISD, and what has been happening for the last 2-3 years since he's been here, last 3 years since he's been here? Sexualization of children and sinking us deeper into debt. The exact same thing that was done in Dripping Springs ISD, where he came from. The sexualization of children needs to stop, and it will stop if I get elected to our school board. And the constantly raising our taxes and sinking us deeper and deeper into debt is going to stop too. We're going to start paying down our debt if I get elected to school board. So there are a number of policies that Dr. Gearing has implemented and helped to promote. For example, the pornography in the schools. If Dr. Gearing decided that he wanted the pornography out of the schools, it will be out just like that. It will be gone. But he wants it here. So the question is, why would any adult want to give pornography to someone else's children? What motivates any adult to want to give pornography to minors? Why would you want to do that? That's a question that everybody ought to be thinking about. Question then. So the financial situation, the reason that we are over $2.4 billion in debt is because our current board has overseen this debt, this continual increase of debt, and they have not tried to pay down the debt in a way that is satisfactory. We need to pay that debt down. We're paying over $70 million every year just in interest. In interest alone. In other words, $70 million that we wouldn't even be paying if we didn't have all that debt. That's more money. That's enough money to build a brand new elementary school every single year, to purchase the land and build a brand new elementary school every single year. That's how much we're paying on interest. Now imagine you have a credit card, and imagine your interest on your credit card is $100 a month. Well, I don't know how much you get for allowance or how much you earn if you have a job, but $100 a month in interest on a credit card, that's a lot of money. And if you didn't have that credit card and you weren't paying that $100 a month, you'd have all that money to spend on other things, right? So basically our school board has decided that we are all going to be indebted for this much, and they keep putting these bonds on the ballot to sink us deeper and deeper into debt. They tried to sink us $750 million into debt last year, and it failed, fortunately. But as soon as it failed, they started talking in the school board meetings about how to get it to pass. What do we do? Do we put it on the May ballot? Do we put it on the November ballot? And the latest plan is they plan to put it on the next May ballot. So right now they're claiming that they're reducing our tax rate, but they have every intention of putting another bond issue on the ballot in May of next year, which will take the INS rate and raise it right back up to where it was before they brought it down just to pass this 35% increase in M&O rate. Anyway, that's a lot of detail. But what we need to do to get out of our situations, we need to pay down our debt, stop paying so much interest, because that interest is eating us alive, and that debt is causing us to have, well, in fact, we got a rating of 2 out of 10 from the Texas Education Agency in the area of financial solvency. You know, they said our financial solvency is rated 2 out of 10 because of the ratio of the debt we owe compared to the amount of assets we have. I think the ratio is like 97% debt to asset ratio. We owe so much debt that we're only about $52 million away from being insolvent, according to the definition of the word insolvent, which means you owe more than you have. In other words, let's say that you have a house that's worth $500,000 and you owe $600,000. Well, technically you're insolvent on that house. You're underwater. You owe more than what the house is worth. Well, that's where we are as a school district. We almost owe more money than what our assets are worth. And when you come to that point, if we get another $50 million in debt, $52 million in debt, we will receive a 0 out of 10 rating, a 0 out of 10 rating in category number 11, financial integrity, from the Texas Education Agency. Yes. So my daughter and son went to Rouse High School. So we did homeschooling in our elementary school years. The first year that Rachel and my daughter entered school was 9th grade at Rouse High School. The first year that my son Joshua entered public schools was 7th grade at Leander Middle School. And when they entered public schools, they lost a whole year of their education because they were so far ahead of where the public schools were that they were just getting taught the same things that they had already learned previously. And so they basically lost a whole year of education when they went into public schools. And when they went into public schools, you know, the thought was, well, we want our kids to learn to socialize, you know, with a variety of different kinds of folks, you know, because we don't want them to just be with people who are friends of ours, you know, but all different kinds of folks. And so that was the thought in bringing them into public education, even though they were getting a higher quality education when we were doing the homeschooling. And Josh, my son, he did so well that he was on the journalism team, just like you guys, and in his 11th grade year, and he was president of the junior class in his 11th grade year. And because he was on the camera almost every day, or quite often, he ended up being well known at Rouse High School, and he was elected to be student body president in his senior year. So for you young freshmen out there, here's a bit of advice. Join the journalism team if you'd like to someday be president of your class or president of the student body, because the journalism team gets seen by folks and gets an opportunity to tell folks about upcoming news like what's happening right here. So that's just a bit of advice for freshmen. Well, I think that anyone who believes that there are zero issues with our election system is probably a problem. You know, I mean, we send teams of people into foreign countries to monitor their election integrity just to ensure that they have fair, safe elections, right? Why do we do that for other countries and we think we don't need to do that in our own country? Do we think that we are immune to that problem? If that problem exists all over the world, what makes us any different from the rest of the world? Of course, there's election integrity issues. That's why when you go to vote, there's 2 election judges in each polling location. There's a Democrat judge and a Republican judge. Why? Well, because the Republican keeps the Democrats honest, and the Democrat keeps the Republicans honest, and there's a balance there of people overseeing the elections. Same with the clerks. They should have some Democrat clerks and some Republican clerks, and the idea is that they're watching each other and trying to keep that polling location a neutral location where people can feel safe, and that their ballot is going to be counted. And so yes, there's an election integrity issue in our country, and I believe it's been a very severe issue. In the 2020 election, it was a very severe issue, and because of it, a lot of people have started getting involved that weren't getting involved, that were just being complacent before. But when they saw what happened in 2020, a lot of conservative voters started saying, we need to get involved in this process. Of course, what else can I do? What are you going to do? If you lose, you lose. That's the way it goes. You win some, you lose some. Last year I ran for city council and in Leander. And I won the general election, but there was 3 candidates running for the spot that I was running for, and they had a runoff election. And then in the runoff election, I lost by 105 votes. Out of, I think it was 4,000 votes, I lost by 105. And it was hard. You don't want to lose, but if you lose, you lose. What are you going to do? And I don't want to lose here. And there's not going to be a runoff election here because that's not the way the school board works. In the school board, if you have 3 people running for a position, it's whoever gets the most votes. Nobody has to get more than 50% of the votes. And so, if I lose, I lose. I hope that doesn't happen, but what am I going to do? If that's the way our democracy works. I just want to mention that if you would like more information, you can go to mike.lisd.com. You can look at my website and get more information there. Thank you. And I ask for your vote. If you're 18 years old, if you're 18 and you're registered to vote, please vote for me. I appreciate it. Thank you.